Hey guys, my name's Phil Boileau, aka Sporting Phil, and this is a new segment we brought for you hoop heads out there called Fill in the Trade, where every time a big story comes up, big player hits the news, a team struggling, whatever in between, we know you guys have this conversation around the bar table at home. Who should be moved where? What could you get for this guy? We're going to bring that to you with a lot of intelligent basketball conversation and guests. One guy we have to give credit to right away as one of our new writers and guys are going to join us on this episode and possibly more, Mr. Justin Rowan. So for myself, Mark, Mota, and Mike, we want to first congratulate and thank you for joining the team. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. I'm really, really excited to join the team. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to have some good hoops conversations coming up.
Exactly. So the team that's been in the press a lot lately, and justly so, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously not getting off to the hottest start ever, but a lot of teams need time to gel, especially with so many moving pieces, but we can still have fun with this. Cleveland Cavaliers, some people saying with LeBron James, Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, the list goes on, should be just steamrolling the league. I know there's a lot to be said about continuity and time spent, but if you had to make a little tweak, where would your perverse trading mind take you?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious candidate would be a Dion Waiters with three high-usage guys already in the big three. You kind of want guys that are complementary. Dion, he's a very talented player, 15 points per game last year. While he is very talented, he might not be able to reach his potential or settle into the role. I know there's some personality issues and things like that. So one thing you could consider is maybe shipping him off to a team that's in need of a scorer, someone that can handle the ball in that, like New York. You ship him off to the Knicks, you take back Sam Dalembert, so you get rim protection, and Iman Shumpert.
Ooh, I like that. I'm a big fan of Shumpert, and that makes sense. Lockdown defender next to Kyrie.
Right, so a guy that can spot up, shoot, defend, low usage, low maintenance guy like Shumpert. You probably would need to throw in a Lou Amundsen to New York as well, so a hustle guy that they can use. He can shoot a mid-range kind of, so he fits in the triangle. But both teams kind of benefit, and while you probably lose out in the value of Dion's potential, it might help the continuity of the team.
Exactly. Now, just to play devil's advocate, this is what we're going to do. We're seeing enough of these players with the Knicks having trouble integrating themselves into the triangle offense. Do you think Dion has the ability to integrate himself where others have failed, or do you think they would need to put that aside and just let ballers be ballers?
Well, I think at this point the Knicks are in talent acquisition mode. The guys that they have right now, I don't see many cornerstone pieces. They basically just need to acquire talent, figure things out. I've heard from interviews with Phil Jackson and guys like that it's going to take a year for them to figure out the triangle on that. So how Dion fits in that? He's a guy that likes to take mid-range jumpers, can create for himself in isolation. So a lot of what you see from Kobe Bryant, obviously not to that level at all, but it's the skill sets that have traditionally excelled in the triangle. So, I mean, while it's going to take some adjustment, and for Dion it's going to be his third or fourth system in the last 3 years, because it's an addition in talent, I think it would be the right move.
I like it, and I also think it'll be very interesting to see him and J.R. Smith on the same team. Those personalities will be interesting all on their own. Although taking Dalembert away from a big man depleted team, defensively anyways, like the Knicks, I could see that as almost like I think they're okay with giving up Shumpert in that trade. I think it makes sense for them. But I think Dalembert, when you're relying a little bit more on the Bargnanis and Amaris to pick up the defensive slack, I think because the one thing Dalembert is capable of doing is rebounding, defending, and shot blocking. Maybe not at an elite level like they hoped Chandler would have been when they brought him in, but he's kind of their guy.
Yeah, I mean, that would obviously be the trepidation there. Maybe you have to throw in a first-round pick to sweeten the deal, seeing that as they've given up every first-round pick they have, basically, except for this year. But while you say that, I mean, it's not like Dalembert is reliable with his health and things like that. So while he is a benefit to the team, He doesn't bring them a lot of offense. He doesn't bring them anyone that's dependable. So they might be willing to part with him in order to add a talent like Dion Waiters, who they did pursue last year. So you never know what could happen there.
Okay, well, that does make sense. Now, when we're talking Cleveland Cavaliers, we were talking backcourt there. I got a couple of questions about that front court. Obviously, Kevin Love is hopefully there for the long term, assuming he signs his extension. Now we have the two big men, Varejao, who signed his 3-year, 30, I believe it was, and then
Yeah,
Tristan Thompson, who's due for an extension. Do you think that those two, because it sounds like Varejao's around, unless they just sign him to pair with Waiters in the trade? And looks like Tristan, because of Rich Paul, that whole situation, looks like he's going to get paid as well. Is that the front court that's going to be able to bring them to the promised land, or do you think they need tweaks at that center position?
I mean, so much of that really depends on Verjao's health and the development of Tristan Thompson. If Tristan Thompson can be the rim protecting presence that he was at Texas, or even better than he has been to this point, that's going to answer a lot of the problems that they have there. I mean, Tristan Thompson, he has played a fair bit of center this year, and he's probably going to continue to do so. He obviously doesn't have the ideal size at 6'10", but you're looking at the same size as a great defensive center in Al Horford. So if he can learn those kind of things, play solid man defense, foul hard, a few blocks, I think it would work out.
Well, I think it makes sense, and we're seeing in the modern NBA, centers aren't necessarily the 7-foot behemoths that we've once seen. You know, Serge Ibaka plays a lot of spot center with OKC to, high success. Now, I think I agree with you there. I think their front court, if they just let them gel a little bit, makes a little bit more sense. But the player that, the two players that have hit the news of late who have had some, we won't call it issues, but some gelling, learning curves, LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. Obviously, LeBron James being the son of Cleveland Akron, he's not going anywhere. I know we were talking about this a bit off camera. Now, Kyrie Irving obviously just signed a brand new deal. Young guard, has been winning a bunch of awards, obviously out in Spain, did very well. Do you think there's a chance this guy gets moved for someone who potentially could fit the role? I mean, I was speaking with a couple other writers here on Hoops Lounge. Mike Grumberg actually brought up an interesting idea for both teams, bringing up maybe a Kyrie Irving and pieces, maybe Dion, for Chris Paul, allowing, I didn't love it for Clippers, considering I think it takes a step back, maybe long term, but it allows Chris Paul to play with LeBron, win now mentality, and it shaves some years off your starting point guard, and you're already signed up for the Clippers, bringing in Dion Waiters, him and Redick. What do you think of something like that, and what do you think the likelihood of Kyrie actually getting moved?
I don't think there's any likelihood. I mean, when LeBron signed, it was to play with Kyrie Irving. LeBron's obviously beginning the regression portion of his career. He's not always going to be who he is right now. So you're going to be looking for a younger player to take over eventually. In the letter, he stated he didn't believe that they were going to win this year. So he was trying to temper expectations there, and it's something that he understands, that it's a process. Just adding on to that with Chris Paul, that trade idea that you got there, I think it doesn't work for either team because it's basically swapping situations. Clippers are absolutely in position to win now, and I think that kind of takes them a set back there. The chemistry that they've developed to this point, you'd basically be scrapping that by losing their leader on the court. So I don't think it's something that's likely to happen. And plus, when you sign a guy to 5 years, you're signing him to be a franchise cornerstone. If you turn around and trade him right away, it kind of sends a message to free agents that they don't know what they're doing. They can't commit to players. They're not committed to the process, and that's a turnoff for free agents beyond the fact that,
well, especially like talented players who might be wanting to re-sign, such as Kevin Love, maybe that sends the wrong signal.
Absolutely. When you sign, you're looking for stability. So you got to remember the personal side of everything, right?
Okay, so essentially he's not tradable. I mean, I was polling some people online. Some people mentioned things like Terrence Ross, Kyle Lowry, to bring in the young stud to grow with JV, bring in a little bit more of an established point guard in Kyle Lowry to mesh with the system. But again, that's a win now over later, and maybe the ceiling on Kyrie is obviously higher than Lowry, so that's a
Right.
loss there. So if you really don't think he's moving, and Love's they're obviously intending to keep, LeBron they're intending to keep, so maybe just waiters. Do you think, let's just say they do trade waiters and get someone who maybe fits the 3 and D situation a little bit better. Let's say they don't. Do you think the talent they have right now is something that can mesh together and complement each other? Or do you think ultimately one of their big 3 will have to be moved to accommodate this?
I think it does mesh a lot better than even Miami's did. With Kyrie Irving and LeBron being the two premier wing guys there, unlike LeBron and Dwayne Wade, both of them can shoot. So when Dwayne Wade wasn't able to shoot, it took Chris Bosh away from the hoop, somewhere that he excels, and made him more of a mid-range shooter. This way, with two shooters on the perimeter, Love can play inside, he can play outside, he can play completely to his strengths. Really, he should be the one that's getting the most shots on the team, in my opinion. Um, but do I think they have enough talent right now as constructed to contend and everything? Yes, I do believe it can mesh. Will a move need to be made, a la Dion Waiters getting traded? It's possible, but I think as is, I don't think that's a necessary requirement for them to contend.
Well, it's interesting as we've seen a lot of teams in the past, which we'll touch on in later shows. OKC presently, the Knicks in the past having quote unquote enough talent, but it is that mesh. Now, as a final point, touching on Kyrie Irving, his usage rate, as you said, is very high, and I do agree with you. I think Kevin Love should get the lion's share of the shots, just considering how the offense flows. I think it works really well. I think his outlet passes will initiate the offense once they break into that half court. His ability to post up and hit the 3 will make him one of the most versatile scorers on that team. How do you think you convince Kyrie Irving, who, for all intents and purposes, had the team to himself last year? And I know you bring in superstars and you should, wane to them, but we've seen in the past Kyrie Irving's not one to back down to anyone, challenging Kobe Bryant in the Olympics and such. How do you think they sell the idea to Kyrie Irving to increase his assist totals, decrease his shots, and ultimately go for more wins?
I don't think his assist totals are going to increase. It's just not going to happen with LeBron James also initiating a ton of the offense. You might see his assist totals remain stagnant, which, considering the percentage of his possessions that are ending in assist, would probably be higher than it was last year. Just the raw totals aren't there. I'm always someone that believes that team assists are more important than individual assists because it shows that everyone's moving the ball. It's kind of indicative of extra passes being made. I think one of his best traits is that he's not afraid to back down. He's going to take that last shot, and he's made quite a few of them. But if he's not facilitating, for whatever reason, he's falling into those bad habits, which is going to take time to break. You just take the ball out of his hands, you let LeBron initiate the offense, and kind of pull Kyrie back in. It's going to take a year or two for him to fully morph into the pure point guard, which he believes, and he said in media day that that's who he pictured himself as when he came into the league. It's something he's striving to be. He scored because they need it, but now he's got to break the bad habits that he formed over his first 3 years.
That makes a lot of sense. And for all those guys out there wanting players and GMs to flip the switch very quickly, these are the kind of conversations you need to have just before you take a young talented player who's signed. Doesn't necessarily mean he's the right player to trade. Like with anything else, you don't jump the gun too quickly. And Cleveland Cavaliers are a great example. And I do think, as many outside sports writers do think, their second half is going to be much, much better than the first half. I think the learning curve is actually going to be fairly short with such consummate professionals, and I think Kyrie Irving is going to balance it out. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below, and always remember to hit us up on Twitter and all the social media outlets, and look forward to more videos from this entity, Phil in the Trade, and more articles we'll be looking out for Mr. Justin Rowan. So again, welcome to the team. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you guys next time in the lounge.